Jamie here at Candidly Chaotic. Welcome back to my channel. Here I like to talk about or share about homeschooling and family adventures and mom life, and hopefully just encourage and give some ideas for you. So today I'm going to be sharing about socialization for homeschooling. It's kind of a buzzword, I suppose, especially for people who are on the fence about homeschooling, or maybe people who are like super against homeschooling. And it can be a painful subject, and it can also be for like seasoned homeschoolers. It can actually be a really annoying subject. And I do not consider myself like completely seasoned. I have experiences, but I'm obviously pretty early on in my journey, and so it's not an annoying topic for me, but I see where homeschooling families have been just kind of like rubbed down in that area, and why it's an annoying thing to come up. But I also, because I am fairly fresh and had those same questions myself, and my husband really did have questions about socialization. So I remember that well, and I see those questions. So I see both sides. But so is socialization a good reason to not homeschool? I'm gonna go ahead and answer that off the top. No, that's like a silly reason to not homeschool. Like for fear of not being able to adequately socialize your child. That's not a good reason. Now maybe your child, maybe you have an only child and they really, really get bored being the only kid at home, and that'd be a different scenario. But for the socialization, we need to have this conversation. What do you mean by socialization? So to make sure we're talking about the same thing, I'm going to go ahead and read a definition for you. The activity of mixing socially with others, or the process of learning to behave in a way that is acceptable to society. And of course, both of those definitions, obviously it's an important thing to be able to be in society and interact with others. Yeah, because you don't want to be rude, you don't want to not know how to say what you need to say, you want to be considerate, all these things. But a lot of times socialization is used as a weapon against homeschoolers or against people who are considering homeschooling. Because things that I have heard, not really necessarily for myself, but for others' experiences, has been, how in the world can your child know how to act out in society? Once you're done homeschooling them, they're going to have no idea how to interact with others. And that is a question that I had, and if I'm really honest, my husband was very concerned about that. It wasn't just a question, it was like that's what's going to happen, and I don't want our children to not know how to interact with people outside of the home. And so so it's not like I'm don't understand where it comes from. But I just want to explain a couple things for homeschooling to maybe put your mind at ease, or I don't know, just kind of talk about it a little bit. So socializing or socialization in the public school setting looks like your child gets put into a classroom with a bunch of other kids who are their age, and then one or two adults, and then as they get older, obviously, like, you have more adults interaction, and when you get into high school, you interact more and more with other ages. But at the beginning, it's your child with whatever your class size is, 18, 25 other students who are the exact same age, and they are definitely learning how to interact with kids their exact same age. But what are they learning from the other kids who are in their class? What kinds of habits, what kinds of interactions are they having that kind of informs them on how you interact with another person? So that's how someone put it to me. Like, this is a little blunt and I wouldn't put it this way, but it did make me stop and think. I did hear someone else say, you know, I don't really want my children to learn to act the way other kids act. Many other kids are seen as rude and inconsiderate and just not having the best manners. And so that was another homeschooler's way of, you know, saying, yeah, I don't want my kid to be socialized in that way. And it was something that made me kind of stop and think. But so I do appreciate the opportunity to teach my children how to interact with human beings who are all different ages, whether it be younger than themselves, their same age, older than themselves, adults. How do you interact in a respectful way and, you know, navigate social situations? And I appreciate the opportunity to maybe stop and talk to my child about how they interacted and how, you know, oh, next time maybe don't do that because that's kind of rude, or, you know, whatever. I like that opportunity. And of course there are times when my kids I'm not with my kids and I don't see how they are, so I can't do that. But because we are together pretty often, I do have that opportunity. But also, so I am a product of public schooling, and I am, and kind of have always been, very shy. And so certain situations I feel very, very awkward in. I feel like I don't know how to interact. Things don't come out right. I stop and start, and then I just like stop altogether because I feel shy and nervous, and like I just didn't interact very well at all. And so I guess I say that and think about that to say that you can be a public school kid and be extremely awkward or not really sure how to interact super well because of a personality thing. And my children are both much more outgoing than I am, and I think they just kind of intuitively know how to interact a little bit better than I do just because of their personalities. So I think that can happen whether you're public schooled or home educated or anything. So I just like to keep that in mind. Now obviously there are situations where kids have never had, you know, there are odd home situations where kids don't really get to interact with others and don't know how to act, and that happens, but that's like so rare. So that's a silly stereotype to hold as true, because that could be true for public school kids too. And then also I just want to point out that being homeschooled doesn't mean you don't see people ever. Some homeschooled kids get so much social interaction because they're in clubs and co-ops and sports and do some traveling and then interact with people out in, you know, the real world or whatever. And so it's really about how much you want to put your family into different things. You may end up getting more social interaction than they would if they were in public school. Now, I don't want to be like gone all the time, but my kids are outgoing and they are pretty extroverted, and so I do put importance on that because it's important to them. And so we are trying out a co-op this year. We do different activities. My son is in different like little extracurricular activities just because he wants to do it for fun. And so to this idea or this concern about socializing and socialization, I say do not let that hold you back from homeschooling, because people will weaponize that and say, well, what about socialization? How are your kids going to know how to interact? How are your kids going to know how to work together with other people? Well, they can say that, and that's fine, and you can explain all the reasons why that's not an issue, or all the ways you're getting around that, or whatever, and they still won't really take your word for it. They will still want to weaponize that against you. And so just don't worry about it as far as what other people are saying. You just need to check your heart and check your kids and check yourself and say, what do we need as a family? What do my kids need, socially? Just because of what social level they enjoy and prefer, and what social level you can handle as like taking your kids places. So, is socialization an issue? No, it's not. And that is coming from someone who asked the same question. There are some very interesting like articles that you can actually look up about homeschool and socialization that kind of address it pretty well and do some really interesting studies. So I would recommend Googling it and seeing what you find. So if you have any comments about socialization and homeschooling, let me know. What are your experiences? Do you have any extra questions? It's kind of a hard topic to cover, so I hope that it helped. And hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos. See you later.